counsel, and it's my understanding that she intends to assert her Fifth Amendment right in either with regard to all or to some certain questions that the state had for her, and I thank the court for giving us time to review those questions. So at this point in time, I suppose we need to have the hearing outside of the presence of the jury so the court can make the determination on whether or not it's a legitimate claim.
All right. Inquire witness.
Yeah, Judge, I asked them to come in, but I don't see her. Can we have Julie Stensky, please? Judge, can Mr. Fushino and I approach?
Certainly.
I'm just holding her right here. Actually, Mr. Sorrentino, can you join us? All right, I just wasn't sure. No, we already put our hands on the
Sure. Judge, for the record, Joseph Sorrentino representing Julia Stensky.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor.
Judge, should we have Ms. Stensky come forward to be sworn?
Yes, please.
Come right up there.
Stensky, I'm yes to stand right before the clerk here tonight.
His left state your name for the record. Do you swear or affirm testimony that you shall give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, right.
Good morning. Could you please state your name for the record and spell it?
Julia Stensky.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you to keep your voice up a little bit. Whenever the ventilation system kicks on, it's a little bit loud. How old are you, Ms. Stensky?
19.
Where do you currently live?
New York City.
Are you a student?
Yes, ma'am.
Where do you attend school?
Pace University.
Which part of New York City is that located?
Lower Manhattan Financial District.
When did you start school at Pace University?
Fall of 2015.
When you started school in the fall of 2015, would that have been in September?
Yes.
Did you have a boyfriend at that time?
Yes.
What was his name?
David Joseph Creato Jr.
And do you see him here in court with us today?
Yes.
And for the record, Judge, she's identified the defendant.
Correct, sir.
How did you meet the defendant?
I would like to consult the judge.
Yeah, but let me just, the way these hearings proceed, and I think the easiest thing is to set the framework, which is set forth in the matter of State versus Smith, which is reported at 322 versus Super 385. The procedure you followed, because I'm quoting from the case, by a trial judge where the privilege and self-incrimination may be implicated is summarized in State versus Jennings, 126 New Jersey Super 70, and were specifically approved by the Supreme Court in State versus Jameson, reported at 64 New Jersey 363. I'm not including all the string cites in this quote. Privilege cannot be invoked for a witness by his attorney, as set forth in State versus Jennings. The witness must take the stand and be placed under oath. He may not claim the privilege until a question is asked, and if he replies without asserting the privilege, he waives it. Although the witness has no right to personal counsel, if circumstances reasonably allow, counsel should be permitted both to advise the witness and to assist the court in passing upon a claim of privilege. And that's explained in State versus Nicola, reported at 33 New Jersey 335. In questioning the witness, the judge should not require the witness to reveal the totality of the incriminatory story, but only enough to indicate a basis for fear of incrimination, while withholding facts which would prove it. And that, again, is quoted from State versus Nicola. With that, I think appropriate reference to counsel will be allowed, but not substantial reference to counsel. So I am going to allow you to confer now.
I'll repeat the question. How did you meet the defendant?
On an online dating site.
When did you meet him?
June 2015.
Where were you living at that time?
Oxford, Pittsburgh.
Were you living with your parents? At that time, did you have a car?
Yes.
What kind of car did you have?
On record.
Once you started school in New York, where did you keep your car?
I left it at home. In Pennsylvania.
At your parents' house? At some point after you met the defendant, did you become aware that he had a son?
Yes.
And what was his son's name?
And then Creato.
How did you become aware that the defendant had a son?
He mentioned it early on.
Early on? Do you recall when he mentioned it to you?
The second time I saw him.
At that time, what was your understanding of the defendant's custody arrangements with regard to his son?
I looked at the amendment.
Judge, our position would be that we've gone that query, or implication with the evidence, factually based. So, if Your Honor wants a proffer as to why.
I think it would be appropriate.
Can we approach, Judge?
Right. asked to answer that question. Let me repeat the question.
Sure, Judge, thank you. Ms. Stensky, that summer, we were still talking about summertime when you first met the defendant. What was your understanding of the custody arrangements for his son?
DJ had Brendan Monday and Tuesday. Samantha Denoto had Brendan Wednesday and Thursday. And Friday and Saturday and Sunday they switched off every other weekend. DJ had.
Did you continue to see the defendant all through that summer of 2015?
Yes.
And when did you leave for school exactly?
I believe it was August 2015, late August.
After you went to school, and you were going to college, right? Okay, after you left for college, when would you see the defendant after school started?
Every weekend.
At this time, did the defendant continue to have Brendan every other weekend?
I'd like to vote.
I'm going to directly answer that question.
How often did he have? Oh, did he continue? Yes.
Yeah, let me repeat the question for you. Once you started school and you were coming down every weekend, did the defendant continue to have his son every other weekend?
Yes.
At that time, did you like to spend time with Brendan?
Yes.
When you were coming down on the weekends, if it was the defendant's weekend to have custody of his son, would the defendant get babysitters for him?
He tried to the best of his ability.
And his mother would take Brendan sometimes? I'm sorry, by his I mean the defendant's mother.
Yes.
Lisa Creato would take Brendan,
Yes.
and his sister Sarah would take Brendan,
Yes.
and that would give you and the defendant time to do your own thing, correct?
Yes.
Times when you would come down for the weekend, how would you travel here from New York? How would you get here?
Subway, then train, then by car to Haddon Township.
Where would you take the train from?
34th Street Penn Station.
In New York City?
Yes.
And where would you get off the train?
Either Hamilton or Trenton.
And how would you get to Westmont from Hamilton or Trenton?
DJ would drive.
Times when you would come down to visit the defendant on the weekends, where would you and the defendant sleep?
DJ's bedroom. In his apartment.
And that's located in Haddon Township, correct?
Yes.
If it was a weekend when he was supposed to, when he had custody of Brendan and Brendan was there, where would Brendan sleep?
The other room.
And how would you describe the other room?
Kitchen and living room and dining room and all.
Like a one all-purpose room?
Yes. Yeah.
How many rooms were there in the apartment altogether?
Three.
And what was the third room?
Bathroom.
Times when you would come down and spend the weekend with the defendant, did you guys sleep with the bedroom door open or closed?
To the best of my recollection, I believe it was closed.
And was that true when Brendan was there as well?
I believe so, yes.
To your knowledge, did Brendan have asthma?
Yes.
Did you ever hear, times when you spent the night at the house, did you ever hear him coughing or doing anything overnight?
Yes.
And can you describe for us what you could hear?
Sometimes he'd cough a little bit. He snored, and it sounded like it was because of his asthma.
Didn't sound like regular snoring to you?
No, sometimes it sounded a little difficult, and then he might cough, and he might wake up, and then he'd cough a little more, and then he'd go back to sleep.
And you could hear all of this through, even though the bedroom door was closed?
Yeah, if I woke up in the middle of the night, I just could hear it.
I want to focus back on when you started school and you were up in New York, okay? When you started school, did you make any friends when you got up there?
Not really.
Were you talking to any guys?
Yes.
Did you ever have any conversations with the defendant where he told you how he felt about you talking to other guys?
Yes.
And what did he say to you?
To the best of my knowledge, he voiced his concern about that.
Did you describe him previously as being paranoid and jealous?
I do not believe he ever had.
Now, Ms. Stensky, you gave a statement to Detective Mike Rhodes on October 13th of 2015. Do you recall that statement?
Yes.
I mean, do you recall coming here to give that statement?
Yes.
And that was approximately, this was about a year and a half ago. Have you had an opportunity to review that statement since the time that you gave it back in October of 2015?
Can you clarify? What do you mean by?
You haven't seen this statement since you gave it to police, have you?
No.
Okay. I'm going to hand you a copy of it and ask you to take a look at it.
Is that Mark, yes?
Oh, yeah, Judge, I'm sorry. Can you tell me what exhibit I'm on for my updated list?
314.
So this will be 315? See, I'm gonna hand you over. My phone, excuse me. Is that me? Oh, there's mine, it's not. I'm gonna hand you State's Exhibit number 313. Can you take a look? Okay. And can you just page through the first couple of pages there? As you're looking through those pages, does that sound familiar to you?
Yes.
Okay, and what does that appear to be?
A transcript of the speech.
Okay, and who were you speaking to in that statement? Can you tell from the front? All right, and what's the date on that?
October 13th, 2015.
Okay, I'm going to ask you if you would please direct your attention to page 15 of that statement. And I'm going to ask you to read the first two lines to yourself. And do you recall saying that to Detective Rhodes?
If it's written in the transcript, yes, I said it.
Okay, and how did you describe DJ with regard to other guys that you were in school with?
Well, he just gets paranoid about it because he's been cheated before. But I don't think that's relevant to this.
Okay, but you referred to him as being paranoid, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to skip ahead to page 19. And I'm going to ask you to look at line 21. Oh, I'm sorry. I got just a minute, Judge. Judge, I'm going to ask to have a second statement marked, if I may. It would be State's Exhibit number 316. Ms. Stensky, do you recall giving a statement in July of last year to some individuals who were with the Air Force?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to take a look at State's Exhibit number, you can hang on that for me, if you don't mind. This is State's Exhibit number 316. This is you do recall giving a statement,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And since that time, you've not had an opportunity to review the statement, have you? Okay, I'm going to ask you to just flip through the beginning of it and see if you recall giving that statement to the two gentlemen from the Air Force. Do you recognize that statement?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, if you would please, turn to page 98 of that statement. And direct your attention to line 15 for me, please. Do you see yourself talking there?
Yes.
Okay, and once again, you were talking about the defendant, correct?
Yes.
And if you glance up at the top of that page, you're also referencing someone you referred to as Geo. Do you see that?
Yes.
And how did you describe the defendant in the context of Geo there at line 15?
Well, DJ was still paranoid, I guess, about that.
And you also said he gave you hell over it, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you did in fact refer to him as paranoid in the past, correct?
It's written here that I have.
Okay. I'm going to ask you in that same Air Force statement if you could turn to page 71 for me. I'm sorry, if you would please direct your attention to line 7. Actually, you could start reading from line 3 to 7 if you just look up at me when you're done.
He told the cops that he was
Well,
paranoid.
just read it to yourself, please.
Oh, I apologize.
Are you done with that? Okay. And in that passage there, again, in speaking about guys you were going to school with, how did you describe the defendant?
Paranoid and jealous.
So you've referred to him as jealous as well, correct?
Yes.
And was there anyone in particular that you were in school with that you knew him to be jealous of?
An individual named Giovanni
And who is Giovanni? Is he a fellow classmate?
was.
Was he in some of your classes?
Few.
Describe for me, please, your interaction with Giovanni.
Minimal.
Did
School
you,
related.
what kind of communications did you have with him?
School related mostly.
What did you call Giovanni?
Gio,
And what's his last name?
I believe it's Borgia.
Borgia? Okay, do you recall a time where you were having a conversation with the defendant about Gio asking you to go to lunch?
No,
You don't recall that?
I do not recall that at this time.
How did the defendant know that Gio was one of your classmates?
I'd like to know.
Again, I'm going to ask you to answer the question.
Understood. Please repeat.
How did the defendant know that Gio was one of your classmates?
I believe I told him verbally.
Did he also check your phone sometimes?
Yes.
And any interaction that you had with Giovanni Borgia or Gio, that was school-related, correct?
Yes.
Do you recall a time when you helped him out with a paper, did some editing on it for it?
Yes.
And was the defendant aware of that?
I believe so.
Did Gio want to do anything for you as payback or to say thank you for helping him out with his schoolwork?
I don't believe that ever came up as a thing he said.
Other than helping Gio out that first time with his homework, was that near the beginning of the school year?
I believe so, yes.
Did he ever ask you to help him out again?
Yes.
Okay, and when was that?
I believe it was towards the end of the semester, for my final papers.
Well, did he ask you for some assistance, between September when school started and the middle of October? Did he ask you for assistance the second time?
I do not recall.
Okay. I'm going to ask you, if you would please, to take a look at your statement to Detective Rhodes. That's the thinner one on page 16. And if you could direct your attention to around line 14 through 16. But again, please read it to yourself and just look up at me when you're done. Okay. So did Gio ask you for help with the second project in that 6-week time frame from when school started through October 15th?
If it states on here, then yes, he did.
Okay, and how did the defendant,
Yes, can you keep your voice up, okay? Because it's being recorded.
how did the defendant feel about that? What did he express to you?
According to this, it says that the defendant was really pissed off.
Okay. And that's referencing the second time that Gio asked you for some help, right?
Like, if it's written here, then yes.
During this time period, and I'm talking about once you went away to school, to your knowledge, was the defendant having financial troubles at that time?
I believe so.
Were you familiar with his situation regarding his paychecks? And what was that situation?
From what I remember, he was not receiving them on time.
And who did he work for?
His father's.
And at one point earlier that summer, did you also work for his father's company?
Yes.
And did you also have trouble getting your paychecks?
I believe it happened once or twice towards the end of my time there.
Okay, that would have been in August.
I believe so.
As September turned into October, did the defendant have the internet service in his apartment anymore?
I do not recall the specific times, but there was a period of time where he was unable to pay the bills, so he lost it.
And moving on towards the middle of October, in fact, Columbus Day weekend, do you recall there being an issue with his car that weekend?
I believe there was.
And what was the issue?
I apologize, I don't believe this time.
Okay. Was he able to come pick you up in his own car?
I don't believe he was able to do that.
Did he tell you that his car had broken down
I believe so.
and he didn't have the money to get it fixed?
Yes. That was.
Do you recall discussing during the course of the statement that you gave to the folks in the Air Force, do you recall discussing with them the defendant's financial situation?
I don't recall it.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to look at your Air Force, the statement that you gave to the Air Force officers. If you could turn to page 90. You see where you were referencing some financial issues? Right around line 19?
Yes.
Okay, and how did you describe the defendant's financial situation at that time?
According to this,
Yes.
I said he was kind of broke at that point.
And do you recall telling the Air Force officials also that you would be the one that always bought dinner as well? That's how broke he was?
I believe so.
Okay, I just want to return to one more thing before I move on a little bit, and this is getting back to you advising Detective Rhodes that the defendant was jealous. You've already located in your Air Force statement where you indicated he was jealous. I'm going to ask you to focus on the statement that you gave to Detective Rhodes. I'm going to ask you to turn to page 16 for me. I'm going to ask you to look at line 19 for me, please. Do you see a question that Detective Rhodes asked you there?
Yes.
Okay, what was the question he asked you?
So he had some jealousy issues.
And what was your response to that?
Yeah, he's been cheated on before, and he's worried that I would get too close to the guys at school and leave him.
And did you make another reference to jealousy in the Haddon Township statement that you recall?
I do not recall if I have.
I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to page 42. And I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to a question that Detective Rhodes asked you at line 4. Do you see that? Can you read that question and that answer for me?
Okay, so he's a little
Go ahead.
jealous. It sounds like when I say jealous with a mixture of paranoia.
Okay. So you did in fact tell the detective from Haddon Township that the defendant acted jealously towards you, correct?
It's right here by himself.
Okay, Ms. Stensky. I would like to now ask you to direct your attention to the weekend of October 9th through October 12th in 2015. Do you recall that as being Columbus Day weekend?
At the time, I had no knowledge that it was Columbus Day weekend, but yeah, yes,
Okay. You know that now, right?
yes,
You didn't have off of school that Monday, did you?
no.
Okay, so it wasn't really a holiday weekend for you, I guess. This weekend in October, were you thinking of ending your relationship with the defendant this weekend?
I'd like to be
We're going to ask the answer question.
This weekend, were you thinking of ending your relationship with the defendant?
I do not recall at the time.
Could you take a look at the statement you gave to the Haddon Township Police Department on page 18, beginning with line 1? And read those first 2 lines to yourself. Actually, if you want to get a little more context for it, turn back a page to page 17 and read the question that Detective Rhodes asked you, beginning at line 18. And does that refresh your recollection about whether or not you were considering ending the relationship with the defendant that weekend?
It's written here, let me see.
Okay, and you did indicate you were thinking about ending it that weekend, correct?
According to this transcript, yes.
And do you remember what you were upset about?
According to this transcript, it was that he had issues picking me up from Trenton.
You didn't want to wait around for him to come get you, right? Do you remember having to sit for a few hours and wait for him to pick you up in Trenton?
Yes.
And specifically on Friday, October the 9th, well, let me back up a little bit. When you would be coming down for the weekend, what day would you normally travel to Haddon Township?
I believe it was Thursday.
Would you normally come on Friday or would you normally come on Thursday?
I have trouble remembering, but I believe that it was usually Thursday.
Okay, did it just depend on your class schedule?
Yes.
Okay, if you had classes or not on Friday?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to Friday, October the 9th. Do you recall having a doctor's appointment early that morning?
Yes.
Okay, so which train did you have to take to get to your doctor's appointment? Do you remember?
I believe it was the 6th.
Well, did you take a train from Penn Station to get where you were going?
To the doctor's appointment?
Yes.
I do not believe I did. The doctor's appointment was in Manhattan, so I believe I took either the 4, 5, or 6 to the doctor. And
Okay.
then from there I went to the train station
And you went to Penn Station?
after the appointment.
And what was your purpose in going there?
To the appointment,
No, to go into Penn Station after your appointment.
to travel down to New Jersey.
And was there any reason why you didn't go from your doctor's appointment back to your dorm room to wait and take a later train down to New Jersey when the defendant could pick you up?
I believe it was financial issues.
Okay, so what did it cost to take the subway, if you remember, at the time?
I believe it's the same as now, $275 per swipe.
Okay, so that would have been up and back to your dorm room, correct?
No, you swipe once from my dorm to get to the doctor's appointment.
Okay,
And then after the appointment, you swipe again to go either to my dorm or to Penn Station.
Okay.
And I have to swipe the 3rd time to get from my dorm to Penn Station.
okay. So it would have been extra money if you were to go back and hang out at your dorm room for a while, correct?
Yes,
Okay, so were you getting kind of broke at this point too?
yes,
So the least expensive way for you to go then was to just stay at Penn Station and come down to New Jersey, correct?
yes.
Do you remember what time that would have put you in New Jersey at the train station?
I don't.
How long would you have had to have waited there for the defendant to come get you?
At Penn Station, or,
No, once you hit New Jersey.
well, from Hutton Township to Trenton train station is about 30 minutes
Okay.
on the highway.
Okay.
There could always be traffic, you could always be late getting off of work. There were a number of different factors that would compensate simply even to be conveniently.
Well, I'm not necessarily looking for an exact specific time, but I'm going to ask you to take a look at your transcript of the Haddon Township statement again on page 18. If you could look at line 4 and 5 to refresh your recollection as to what time the earliest was that the defendant would be able to pick you up on this date.
7 p.m.
Okay, so that would have left you at the train station for several hours, correct?
Yes.
Waiting for him. And how did you feel about that?
I believe I was irritated by it.
Was there anything else you were irritated about as you were making your way down to Haddon Township? And I would direct your attention, still on page 18 to line 14 if you need to refresh your recollection.
According to this, I stated that I was not happy about his child being there,
So it was his weekend to have Brendan, correct?
according to this transcript, yes.
So on this particular date, in the end, tell us how you got from New York to Haddon Township.
I apologize, I don't.
That's okay. We can turn to page 34 of the transcript, and if you begin reading at line 2, that should help us refresh your recollection.
Page 32,
34, line 2.
understood.
You can take a minute and read that to yourself. Just look up at me when you're done. I'm sorry. So tell us, how did you get here?
I took the train from Penn Station to Trenton, and from Trenton, New Jersey, took SEPTA to Philadelphia, and from Philadelphia, I took the Patco train to Westmont.
Okay, and who picked you up from the Westmont Patco station?
DJ.
Do you recall about what time that was?
In this transcript, it approximates that time to 6 p.m.
And was this the same day that DJ told you that his car died? Do you recall that?
I do not recall.
Okay, once you arrived in Haddon Township, where did you guys go? After he picked you up?
According to the transcript, we stayed at the apartment.
And did you have any arguments with the defendant that evening? If you need to refresh your recollection, I would direct you to page 19 of the Haddon Township statement.
According to the transcript,
You should probably read all the way down through line 19, and then just look up at me when you're done.
according to the transcript, I said, I don't want to do this, I want to go back to Trenton.
And did you want to go back to Trenton because you were upset that Brenda was there?
I plead the fifth.
Let me ask the answer to the question.
According to the transcript, I was kind of upset with Brendan being there, but I do not see anywhere in here where it says we specifically argued over this matter.
Okay. Do you recall arguing about anything other than Brendan that evening?
I do not recall that.
Well, when you were explaining this argument to the police, you told them that the argument was really just about Friday, correct? This is all on page 19.
Yes.
Okay. Because, and you mentioned to the police that DJ's mom was going to come get Brendan on Saturday, correct?
According to the transcript, yes.
Okay. And you indicated that with his kid being there, that meant both of you had to be in the apartment and his friends were doing something fun and you wanted to go do that, but you couldn't because Brendan was there, correct?
According to the transcript, it does not say that we could not.
Mm-hmm.
The sentence kind of ends, so that's not
Okay.
indicated in here. I do not recall specifically when I said that.
Okay. Where it becomes inaudible, you mean?
Yes.
But you do see where he said that his friends were doing something fun and you wanted to go with that, correct?
Yes.
So just so it's clear in context, what you actually said was, I was just kind of upset with his kid being there. That meant both of us had to be in the apartment and his friends were doing something fun and I wanted to go with that, correct?
Yes.
So would you agree with me that you were arguing about Brendan that Friday night?
If it's not due to the transcript, I apologize. I cannot recall exactly what happened a year and a half ago.
Well, let's move on to Saturday. Did all three of you sleep in the apartment that night, you and Brendan and the defendant?
I believe so.
And did you sleep in the bedroom with the defendant?
Yes.
And Brendan slept out in the living room on the couch?
I believe that's what happened.
And at some point on Saturday morning, did Brendan come in and wake you guys up?
I don't recall that.
I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to page 35 of your transcript. And if you would look around lines 8 and, actually lines 6 through 9, just to give you some context.
According to the transcript, yes, Brendan woke us up.
Okay, what time did he wake you up?
According to the transcript, around 7 in the morning.
And do you recall, what was the plan for Brendan that day? You've already indicated the defendant's mom was coming to get him. Did you know what they were going to do?
According to this transcript, I believe they were going to go to the zoo.
And were you expecting to get him back Saturday night, or were you expecting DJ's mom to keep him overnight?
I apologize, I don't recall.
I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to page 19. Right around line 11, please. 11 through 14, if you could just read that to yourself. What was your understanding of Brendan's plans for Saturday?
According to the transcript, Miss Lisa Creato was gonna take Brendan to the zoo, and then he was supposed to spend the night at DJ's parents' house.
Okay, so at some point on Saturday morning, did Brendan leave and go to his grandma's house? Do you recall?
Yes.
Okay. And then what did you and the defendant do that day once Brendan was with his grandma?
Don't recall.
All right, I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to page 35 of your transcript. If you could look around line, I guess just start at line 1, and if you could read that through line 14 to yourself. Okay. Do you recall what you did that day now?
According to the transcript, he stayed in bed most of the day.
Okay, just hung out at the apartment?
Yes.
Did you guys do anything that night that you recall? Did you go anywhere?
Do not recall.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to page 36 of your transcript. And probably if you could begin, I guess around line 14 through 19. Do you recall meeting up with some of the defendant's friends that evening?
According to the transcript, it says we did.
Okay, and do you know the defendant's friend whose name is Kevin? Do you remember him?
I do not remember him.
Do you recall going to a party at his house that evening? Or his mom's house, I should say? Just a gathering, not a...
According to the transcript, we went to a gathering of people.
And where was the gathering? Do you remember?
According to the transcript, it says Kevin had it at his house.
Have you been to Kevin's house before?
I don't recall.
You don't recall meeting Kevin several times over that summer when you and the defendant were going out? Before you went to school?
I'm sorry, I don't recall.
Do you recall where you spent Saturday night?
According to the transcript, it says we came back, I'm assuming was to the apartment.
Okay, so back to the defendant's apartment, correct?
I believe so.
And normally if you came down for a weekend, would you spend Saturday night in Haddon Township as well?
Yes.
All right, over the course of this weekend, whether it was on Saturday or Sunday, do you recall having a conversation with the defendant about Sam, Brendan's mom, possibly taking him to court?
I'd like to speak with
I'm going to ask the answer to the question.
about Sam taking DJ.
Yeah, if you need to refresh your recollection, I would direct you to page 22, right around line 8.
According to the transcript, yeah, indicates that.
Okay. Well, even just in general, you have a recollection of, because you had this conversation with the defendant several times, didn't you? About people wanting to take him to court for child support?
I don't recall, this was a year and a half ago.
Okay. Well, what did he tell you on this weekend? What do you recall him telling you?
According to this transcript, the boyfriend and the mother of Miss Denoto were pushing her to take DJ to court over Brendan.
Do you recall that at some point back in August before you left for school that Brendan also started school?
Sounds about right.
And do you recall the defendant helping to pay for that?
What I remember, either him or his parents were paying. I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly who was taking care of the financial situation.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to page 23, line 16. Do you recall telling police that the defendant owed his ex a lot of money because he was behind on his paychecks? and he couldn't be paying for his son's school?
According to the transcript, that is what I indicated.
Well, according to the transcript, you even indicated that he was about $400 behind. Do you recall that?
It's in the transcript, and yes, I said.
Okay, so I think you've already testified that you spent that Saturday night at the defendant's apartment. So let's go over to Sunday, okay, October 11th, we're on now. Do you recall, did you guys get Brendan back at any point that day from his grandmom, from the defendant's mom?
According to the transcript, I don't believe so.
Do you have any idea where Brendan went? Okay, so you just know that you never saw him again that day?
I did not see it.
Did you and the defendant have plans that day? Were you supposed to go somewhere?
Do not.
Are you familiar with an area that's called Apple Pie Hill?
Yeah,
Where's that located?
Oregon State Forest in New Jersey.
And what's located at Apple Pie Hill?
Fire tower?
Have you been to that location?
Previously? Yes.
And what goes on at Apple Pie Hill? It's just like a hangout for people?
Yeah, they don't like that stuff.
Hiking, camping, things of that nature, right? And they go to see the fire tower, correct? Do you recall that you and the defendant were supposed to go to Apple Pie Hill on Sunday, October 11th?
I don't recall that.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to page 37, line 15 of your statement to Haddon Township Police Officers.
Excuse me, what one?
15.
Yeah, according to the transcript.
Okay, so you told the police you were supposed to go there that day, correct?
Yes.
But you ended up not going. Is that your recollection?
Yeah, according to the transcript, we never went.
So do you recall where you went instead of going to Apple Pie Hill that day?
According to this transcript, we went to the Cooper River, the park, and it's parking.
What time did you and the defendant go down to Cooper River Park, approximately?
According to the transcript, I apologize, I don't.
I direct your attention to page 12, line 17.
According to the transcript, 6 or 7 p.m.
Okay. And it was around sunset, you indicated, correct?
Yes.
And do you recall, did you guys hang out there that night, or did you just kind of walk through and come back to the apartment?
Don't.
I'm going to ask you, are you still on page 12?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to line 5.
According to the transcript, we just walked.
Just walk through it, right? Okay.
Yes.
And did you also tell the police during the course of this interview that you and the defendant had been there together between 20 and 30 times at Cooper River Park? That, direct your attention to the next page 13, right around line 17.
According to the transcript, yes.
All right, so after Cooper River, you indicated you were there around sunset. Who, if anyone, came over to the defendant's apartment that evening?
According to the transcript, it was Kevin and his girlfriend.
Okay. And what did you guys do with Kevin and his girlfriend?
Drank and watched TV
Do you recall what time they left?
about 9 in the evening.
What time did you and the defendant have to get up the following day?
According to the transcript, at 5 in the morning.
Was that normal for you when you were getting ready to go back to school on a Monday?
From what I remember, yeah, that was pretty normal.
Okay, because you had class Monday morning, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what train did you, like generally speaking, which train would you have to catch in order to make it to your Monday morning class?
Apologize, I don't know. believe it would be an express train, but I don't remember the times.
Okay. Well, let's talk about, instead of in general, let's talk about this specific Monday. Now, referring to Monday, October the 12th. Do you recall if you did have classes scheduled for that day?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so did you go back to school that Monday morning?
Yes.
Do you recall what time your first class was?
10:30.
Okay, and what class was that?
I believe it was
Microeconomics? All right, so how did you get back to school this particular Monday?
took the train and then I took a subway to school.
All right, how did you get from Haddon Township to the train station?
I believe DJ drove me.
Do you remember which vehicle he drove you in? Okay. Do you recall which train station he drove you to? All right, I'm going to ask you to refer to page 32 of your transcript there.
According to the transcript, he drove me to Trenton.
Okay, and does the transcript also refresh your recollection on what time you needed to be there, exactly which train you would catch?
It took the 6:48 express.
And that was an express, correct?
Yes.
And does that mean that the train departed at 6:48 a.m.?
Yes.
Okay, so you had to be there pretty early, correct? And do you recall when you would take that train back to New York, approximately what time would it get you in New York City?
According to the transcript, around 8 a.m.
Okay. And you did this every weekend for approximately 6 weeks, correct?
6 weeks.
Yeah, from the beginning, from when you started school in September until the middle of October would be 6 or 7 weekends. You did this every Monday, correct? Do you have a recollection of what time you left the defendant's apartment to make your way up towards Trenton on this particular Monday?
I do not.
All right, I'm going to ask you to refresh your recollection by looking at page 32, line 3.
According to the transcript, it was 5:45 to 5:50.
Okay, so you guys were out the door before 6 a.m., correct? All right, once you get to Penn Station in New York, how far is the campus of Pace University from that station?
By subway, depending on which way to take, it could be 30 to 20 minutes.
And is there a subway stop that's very close to your campus?
Yes.
All right, once you returned to school on that Monday, did you go to your microeconomics class that morning?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to talk to the defendant during the day that Monday after you returned to school?
Do not recall.
Okay, I'll direct your attention to page 39, beginning at the first line.
According to the transcript, yes.
Okay, so you had conversations with, well, maybe they were text conversations, but you had communications with the defendant during that Monday, correct?
Yes.
And did you talk about your classes?
According to the transcript, yes.
And did the defendant make any inquiries with regard to other guys at school?
According to this,
Yes.
he did.
Okay, what kind of inquiry did he make?
He asked if any guys had talked to me.
All right, and was he asking you about anyone in particular?
Oh,
Well, was Geo's in your microeconomics class, correct?
no.
Which classes of yours at the time was Geo in?
Politics and history.
Okay, was Geo in any of your classes that day?
Yes.
Okay. Was the defendant making any inquiries with regard to Geo?
I don't recall.
At the time when the defendant was making inquiries on this Monday about you speaking with other guys, whether it's Geo or someone else, how did you describe him to police as far as what his attitude towards you was? And I'm referring to what you said on page 42 in line 5.
According to this, I said he was jealous of a mixture of paranoia.
Did you and the defendant also on this day, still on Monday, did you have any communications about his car? Directed to page 39, right around line 18.
According to this,
Okay, and what did he tell you about his car?
Well, it was screwed up and he didn't have insurance for it.
Okay, so did you offer to do anything for him to help him out?
According to the transcript, I possibly said I could sell him my car.
Okay. And where was your car at this time?
I believe it was in Bucks County.
It was still parked at home?
Yes.
Okay, you didn't have your car in New York with you, did you? Do you remember how the defendant reacted when you offered to see if you could sell him your car? All these conversations that I've asked you about on that Monday with regard to your classes, with regard to the defendant asking you about guys, and with regard to his car, were these conversations you had like voice speaking on the telephone, or were these text conversations that you had with him? I would direct your attention to page 39, line 12.
According to this, it said texted me on all of this.
Okay. And in fact, you actually told the police it was all text because you only spoke to him once in the evening, correct?
Yeah, he called me once in the evening according to this.
Okay. And when did he call you in the evening?
I don't remember.
Direct your attention to line 13 of page 39.
Line 13 just says the evening.
Yes, it says right before you went to bed, correct?
Yeah, before I went
Okay.
to bed.
So you spoke with him on the telephone before you went to bed that night, correct?
Yes.
And would you normally do that? Like say goodnight or whatever?
Best of my recollection, yes, I'm trying to recall the truth.
Do you recall what time you went to bed that evening?
I do not recall that.
Do you recall if you had anything special scheduled in school the next day with regard to a test you had to take?
Yeah, that had been test.
All right. What class was your test in?
Math.
What time was your math class?
I don't recall 10.
It was a morning class?
Yeah, it was.
So did you go to bed early that Monday night?
I believe so.
Yeah, you don't recall what time it was though? Okay. Do you recall what you did with your phone when you went to bed?
We put it on silent.
Did you usually do that when you went to sleep?
My phone was usually on silent all day.
Okay, how come?
It ringing noisy
Did you get a lot of texts?
sometimes.
Okay. Did you sleep through the night that Monday night?
Yes, I believe it's like
Do you recall what time you woke up Tuesday morning?
possibly around 9:30, something like that.
When you woke up that morning, Tuesday morning now, did you see any missed messages or calls on your cell phone?
Can I just see where it's referenced in here?
Sure.
I don't remember.
If you could look at page 4, around line 15.
Yeah, I got, according to this, I had some texts from DJ.
Okay.
7 missed calls from him. I also got a call from the detective too.
From a detective?
Yes.
Was that from a detective in Haddon Township? If you recall?
I believe it was, since this happened in Haddon Township.
Okay.
I can't say for sure.
All right, once you saw that you had missed a bunch of calls from the defendant and you had received a text from him, did you try to get in touch with him? With the defendant I'm referring to?
Yeah, according to this, it said I called DJ, but he didn't.
Okay, so you couldn't get a hold of him over his phone at that time, correct?
According to this one.
All right. Now, you've already indicated that you had some classes scheduled for Tuesday morning, correct? I believe you said it was math class.
Yeah.
Did you go to your math class that morning?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to speak with anyone from the Haddon Township Police Department before you went to your math class?
According to this, I spoke to Detective,
Detective Hack?
I apologize.
That's okay. And what did Detective Hack tell you when you talked to him?
I don't
I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to page 50, line 4 of your statement. I'm sorry, page 50, line 4.
Page 50?
Oh, it doesn't look at page 50. I'm sorry, you know what, Ms. Stensky, I'm incorrect. It's in the other transcript, the Air Force transcript. My apologies, it's page 50, line 4.
Yeah, according to this transcript, the detective told me Brendan is missing.
Okay, is that how you found out Brendan had gone missing?
Yes.
And that was before you went to math class, correct?
Yes.
Where did you go after your math class?
Don't recall. I believe I was still in school. I was still on the campus.
Okay, at some point, did you head back to your dorm room?
I believe so.
And at some point later, did you travel from New York down to Haddon Township later that afternoon?
Yes.
And where did you go? Which part of Haddon Township?
The police department.
Did you take the train from Penn Station over into New Jersey?
Yes.
Did you go to Trenton again? Hamilton? And how did you get from the Hamilton station to the Haddon Township Police Department?
Detectives drove.
They picked you up there?
Yes.
All right. And when you arrived at the police station, did you give Detective Mike Rhodes a statement?
Yes.
And you spoke with him for about an hour, correct?
I do not recall exactly how long this took.
Well, it wasn't much more than an hour. Would you agree with that?
I'm sorry, I don't recall.
Okay. At the time when you were speaking with Detective Rhodes, did he ask you if you would provide a buccal swab to give a DNA sample?
Yes.
And you agreed to do that, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, your mouth was swabbed and you gave the sample? Ms. Stensky, can you tell me, other than here in court today, when was the last time you saw the defendant?
January 11, 2016.
And was that the last time you spoke with him as well?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to... That's all the questions I have, Judge. Thank you, Ms. Stensky.
Right. For purposes of this part here, I've made determinations as to claims of privilege that were made, just so the record is clear, under State versus Jennings, which is reported at 126 New Jersey Super 7. The policy issues are set out, and there it's stated the important reasons why a claim of the privilege is thus closely circumscribed. The first is that it is at war with the great objective of the trial, the ascertainment of the truth as to the issues contested. This is further explained in State versus Nicola. In the matter of In Re Pillow, which is reported at 11 New Jersey 8, trial courts are instructed as follows, because the basic problem for the trial court is how properly to afford full protection to the witness and at the same time prevent simulated excuses. The trial judge is not to accept the witness's mere statement that an answer will tend to incriminate him. It is for the court to say whether the silence is justified, as explained in Aaron Burr's case. The test for the judge governed as much by his personal perception of peculiarities of the case as by the facts actually in evidence, as explained in Hoffman versus United States, reported 341 U.S. 479. is whether from all the circumstances appearing, that is, the setting in which the question is asked, there is a reasonable ground to apprehend danger to the witness from his being compelled to answer. Danger to be apprehended must be real and appreciable with reference to the ordinary operation of law in the ordinary course of things, not a danger of an imaginary or unsubstantial character, having reference to some extraordinary and barely possible contingency, so improbable that no reasonable man would suffer it to be influenced by his conduct. Based upon my understanding of the peculiarities of this case, the testimony has been presented to the court. I made my rulings as appropriate. I did not find that the privilege was appropriate, and frankly, the witness fairly and fully answered the questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 10-minute recess so we can give everybody a break.
Judge, I'm sorry. Can we approach with regard to scheduling once Ms. Stensky steps down?
Sure, you can step down and have a break. You're going to be called back in. You're going to be testifying again in front of the jury this time. You'll be sworn in again in front of the jury, just so the jury can see that you're placing the oath. All right? And why don't you can take a 5-minute break and we'll get you back in here, okay?